Okay, Lucia, how are you doing? How are you doing today?
Hi, yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you. Finally, the sun's out and I'm sitting in sunny Cornwall in the UK. Yeah, I'm good. I'm happy.
Amazing. How are you dealing with not traveling as much and staying in the UK? Are you going crazy?
Not yet. I have my moment, but not yet. No, it's been actually really nice. I think it's a great opportunity to be able to be still and appreciate the things that maybe I wouldn't necessarily when I'm away. My job consists of, traveling 200, 250 days a year. So
Wow.
I'm away a lot and I don't get time to spend with family and be still. So I'm always on planes and in the field. So it's been quite nice to be still and to do things more locally.
Yeah. Is that one of those things that is sort of overrated about traveling? That you're always having fun and stuff, but all of a sudden you realize that you're not really still at all. You're not really enjoying time with friends and family in a consolidated way.
I think traveling as much as I do, and as a travel photographer and adventure photographer, we miss some of the most important moments, in life, in the fact that we miss those, engagements with family or weddings or,
Wow.
birthdays. And it's hard, I think, for someone that doesn't travel as much to truly understand what the spirit and the freedom of travel truly means. So for me, being on the road and traveling from country to country, from shooting different things from, gorillas in Rwanda to surfing on the coast of Mexico,
Wow.
there's a lot of diversity. And I have a drive to see and experience that diversity more so than I have being at home in routine and perhaps making those engagements more.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. What are these experiences out of all of them? What do you think is the most shocking, sort of maybe natural experience? I wanted to ask these remote places where you've had to take these photographs. What have you experienced?
Um, well, I spend a lot of the summers, our British summers and our British winters in the Arctic and Antarctica. So in the summer
Wow.
months, I venture north. I go up to Iceland, go up to Svalbard, and up sort of circumnavigating, like I did last year, Arctic Russia, which was, 6 to 8 weeks on an expedition vessel, breaking through sea ice and experiencing what high Arctic conditions and places offer. In our winter months, it's the Antarctic summer. So I will generally go down to South America, ready to depart for the Antarctic Peninsula or the mainland, and spend sort of November to February down there. And that's, again, being on a vessel, working with penguins and, working with humpback whales and a lot of the affluent wildlife which the Antarctic sort of, continent offers. So I think they're very challenging because they're otherworldly places. And there's a lot of conditions, you have to prepare yourself for the weather, the currents in the sea, and maintaining your kit and keeping everything to a certain level, because you can't just, fly home or get in a car and just go back to home base and, recoup
Mm.
and go back again.
Wow. Wow, that's insane. And when going to these Arctic locations, do you feel more in line with nature in the sense where you can really tell that there's global warming? You can really tell that there's sort of these shocking behavioral changes between the animals and just changes in the whole, ice and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good way to describe it and to assess this is from going back to places I go to every year. So, an example of that would be going to shoot glaciers in Alaska. So, every year I go back around Seward and I fly in. And I spend a few weeks around the same area and visit the same glacier. I can see how it doesn't just appear to have changed, but the recession and the environment around it is changing very, very very vastly, very quickly. And the same with Antarctica. Perhaps going down there at the same time in the year, the same season, it's quite apparent that the sea ice is broken off more. The animals perhaps may be in different locations or behaving slightly different as to where they can gain their food from or not. So yes, I think the opportunity to revisit some of the same places, I can really see the environmental change that our
Wow.
planet is going through.
Wow. And in terms of animals in general, what have you seen, or what kind of animals have you seen that are the most interesting in terms of behaviors? And maybe putting that in the context of photography, how how is it harder to take good pictures of them because they do such strange movements or things like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing which I find a little intimidating is shooting with an underwater housing for the leopard seals. So leopard seals um, are seals which inhabit the Antarctic waters and have very large teeth, and they look kind of serpent-like. So,
Wow.
from my experience of working with seals around the world, there's plenty different species, but they can be aggressive. But I think when you've got a leopard seal coming towards your lens, and they will actually attack the port dome of your lens, so it's extremely intimidating. So I find the creatures very strange because they're seals, but they look serpent and they're really threatening, like, and they're predators. So I find that very strange. Whereas the penguins, for example, in Antarctica, I mean, they're just fun. I mean, I love just sitting on the ice and watching them, and I like learning about the different species of the brush-tailed penguins, whether it's gentoo or chinstrap or adelie, and each different kind of penguin species has a different personality. So that's really
Wow.
exciting to sit and, to have my camera. I have my sort of 400 millimeter prime Canon lens, which is my go-to lens in these conditions, um, and really just sitting and watching their lives and being a visitor in their world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How different is observing or taking pictures of these animals compared to humans in general? Like the how is your experience different?
I really enjoy nature photography and shooting wildlife because I feel at peace when I am
Mhm.
sitting alongside them. I think animals are a lot more simpler than we are, and it's a lot more relaxing. And I like trying to understand, what they're doing. They, as we do, have their daily lives. So the penguins, they go to the shores, they feed, they bring back food for their chicks, they build nests, they move rocks around and steal rocks from other penguins' nests and put them on theirs. So it's really nice to observe that and to create my own story in my head. With humans, I also really enjoy shooting portraits, because I really like to understand a person, and I feel that taking portraits of people, really it depends on them giving me the portrait. So if they feel comfortable enough to allow me to take that picture, and I think that's quite a humbling feeling when I can take pictures of people, but perhaps I may not think I have a good shot with any of those. It's not until the actual person gives me that portrait and allows me to sort of take that picture and they give me the shot I need, and that's really empowering because I know that I've played a part in that relationship. So
So the stronger the relationship, or the stronger the confidence with the person, the easier it is to express the authenticity of that person in the picture.
yeah, I think if
Wow.
someone doesn't want a picture taken of them, then they're not going to deliver a particularly calming expression, or they're not going to really perhaps deliver the portrait you need. They might shy away from the camera. They might, put their hand up against their face and, to show that they don't want to have the picture taken. Whereas someone that has assessed you, can see you've got a camera, pointing it towards them, and are calm with that and trust that, what you're going to do with that is going to be in good intention, then I think that allows a photographer to get a really nice portrait back.
Wow. Wow. And has any animal ever recognized the camera and been shy on it before?
Uh, yeah, when you're shooting seals that are in the water, if they pop up, and their heads come above the water and they see you with a large lens, they will generally go straight back down again.
Wow. Now, sometimes they're smarter than we think as well.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And what about during these experience of making these photographs? What were the most difficult photographs to take, in the sense as you had to go very in these difficult environments where you had to, walk up a mountain or something, and really go and hide to take these pictures? Do you have any experiences like that?
Yeah, so with Antarctica, I do a trip where I go to the mainland, which means I fly in
Wow.
to what we call the White Desert. So I'm not on the ocean, but I'm right in the middle, sort of in the actual continent. and it's very harsh conditions, and it's a desert. So in order to stay down there for a while, you need planes, you need skidoos, you camp in these igloo type tents, and you need to make sure you have enough supplies to, obviously keep you down there for the desired time. So the temperatures can really vary. So I think that's a really challenging place to actually take photos. You get cold easily, your fingers get cold, so it's hard to sometimes shoot. You've got so many layers on that it's not always, you don't feel very flexible to move around.
Wow.
So I would say, yeah, the Antarctica, the White Desert, is quite a harsh place to take pictures.
That's super harsh. I can't imagine how cold it must be and how uncomfortable it must be. And getting that perfect picture, I'm sure, is even harder. So I sort of wanted to ask, what makes it, what's that step or what's that luck that you need to get that perfect picture, especially when we look at animals and nature.
So I always like to come back with a picture which tells a story. So it's really interesting to me if there's interaction in a wildlife moment. So if there's any skuas, which are birds which steal the penguin eggs, it's nice to sort of have a penguin in the background with the skuas stealing the egg, and sort of having that more editorial approach where you can sort of understand the story of what's happening. I think light conditions is really important, and I love to shoot in the golden hour, or when, if you're talking about Antarctica, basically the only time you have low light is between midnight till probably 2 in the morning, where the sun doesn't set in the summer. So you're sort of really getting a very orange tint, or a low sort of sunset, which lasts for 4 or 5 hours, which is actually a photographer's dream. So that's great, but you also have to be prepared to be up through the night in order to have that opportunity. But I think because of the colors and the light source that you get down there, I think that's really important to use as an opportunity and shoot in that desired light conditions.
Yeah, yeah. How is that? How is sleeping? Like, how can you manage your sleep schedule with such a strange sunlight hours of all day, basically having sun? How can you manage that?
You don't. You get very sleep deprived.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so I think you rest, probably in the afternoon, maybe, from any time like 2 o'clock till 5 o'clock. It can sometimes be resting hours. Um, but also, when the conditions come in and there might be a snowstorm or something that the visibility is not great, then maybe if there's nothing to shoot, then it's good to take an opportunity in some flat light, just to sort of, sleep and catch up.
Hmm. Is it usually cloudy in Antarctica, for example, in the summer, or I mean, in the winter, which would be like the summertime?
Yeah.
Is it usually cloudy, or does it have more sunlight hours?
I would say it has more sunlight hours. There can be cloud cover, but it's more mist or fog that comes in. Whereas, yeah, a lot of the time it can be really clean and clear, and a lot of the times, there's not much wind, so it can be very glassy and clean conditions, which is great if you're shooting out on zodiacs or ribs, small vessels, in order to get around the small outcrops of land.
Wow. And what really made you want to do this, to do these activities in these wild places? What really gave you that energy to want to be a photographer in these locations?
I think for me, a transition in from action sport and doing sort of a lot more sport photography or extreme sport photography, I really enjoyed going to these remote places to document sort of our last frontiers. So having the access and wanting to go to these places like Siberia or the Arctic, Antarctica, small tribes in, the Amazon, or down in South America, I think, we're not always going to have the privilege to see this for much longer. And I think it's really important to provide us and with generations, coming up, and sort of have visibility on what we have and trying to preserve that. So a lot of conservation efforts in providing awareness to these places. I think we're very far detached from them, and there's only a small percentage of people that actually gain actual, access to these places. So it would be a waste if I wasn't to document it in a way that can bring that awareness and to, help our planet for future generations.
No, it's true. It's incredible, and I'm sure it's incredibly fulfilling as well to look at these cultures, especially in the Amazon, and look at these remote places where we have zero contact with those ancient, ancient habits, ancient ways of life. Which brings me to asking also, how have you learned from these ways of life? What do you see? What would you see? What is a key message that you would bring from learning from, for example, the tribes in the Amazon?
I think keep it simple. One thing, like a motto I've always lived by is, as humans, we seem to accumulate and we build. So, we have the car, we have a bigger house, we
Mm.
build families. And I think that's great. But I also think that one thing I've learned from being with these tribes or remote places is it's more about survival. So, it is possible to survive on half the amount of consumerism that perhaps we do as human beings. And, it's not sustainable either. So we're, destroying our planet in so many different ways. And, when I look at how tribes live, in, say, the Amazon, they're sustainable. They have to be. They don't have any other choice. They eat off the earth. They work together as a team to provide and support other people. So it's very primal, and I think that's a key message I like to bring back and like to try and live myself, is keeping consumption down and understanding that sometimes our wants are more than perhaps what we need.
Yeah, and sometimes we're looking at the wrong ones, right? Maybe the primal way of life, just being outside, having some sunlight, walking around barefoot, or eating very healthy food might make you happier, and people might just go, oh, I wanted this. And at the end of the day, it might be, your health and your habits that you need to go back to those primal ways of living.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to go back also to the simplicity, as you said, of these tribes. What about surfing? How can you relate that in terms of simplicity? Um, because I mean, I've done it a few times, and honestly, I've loved it. And it's sort of this, you know, incredibly physically, demanding sport, but incredibly relaxing. So how would you describe surfing?
Surfing to me is it's a lifestyle. So it's sort of a meditative form of what keeps me alive. So I really enjoy it because it connects me with the ocean, it connects me with Mother Nature. It has led the path in travel to some of these remote
Wow.
places
Yeah.
because I've been in search of waves in remote destinations, and it's brought culture with that. And it's also quite a solitude sport in the way that it's not just a sport, it's a lifestyle, and you really do buy into it for so many more reasons than just exercise. And it sort of connects you more with Mother Nature, and being able to have a relatively inexpensive sport to partake in, like buying a surfboard and maybe a wetsuit. You can really take so much enjoyment out of being out there in the waves and connecting with that energy source, and
Yeah.
also having a really good workout and feeling mentally refreshed as well as physically. And with photography, surfing, photography came to me because that was the lifestyle I led. So when I first started photography, it was because of my surfing. So I wanted to travel and surf, and then I decided to document my travels, and then I decided that I enjoyed, or I became part of that lifestyle. So then, that's what I ended up shooting, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Wow. I I always think about, when we record here on the podcast and when we, take pictures and things like that, how does documenting your experiences change your experiences? Do you feel like it feels maybe not less authentic, but more, you know, um, less on the spot?
I think I have a natural urge or a kind of an OCD in the fact that I have to document everything. So
Okay.
I see everything in frames. I see everything as photographs. The way I look at life is through my camera, even if I'm not. So for me, any experience, whether that's surfing, seeing the ocean, weather that day, capturing someone I saw walking on the street, or some wildlife in a remote region, I have a natural need to want to capture that in time. So I liked to be able to look back at those images and be able to relive that experience. And when I look back at different experiences that I may have documented, it also gives me different feelings and a different way of looking at it. So if I'm here looking at something now, in 10 years' time, when I look back at it, I have a completely different outlook on it. And I think it's very interesting how you develop and change as a person as to how you see what you shot or how you see the world at that time.
Yeah, yeah. I see. That's incredible. How did you develop this mindset, like this outlook on life while starting to be a photographer, or did you have that since maybe childhood, or yeah, since younger?
I think it was developed through photography. So I think photography was the tool that enabled me to do it, but also gave me the inspiration to enjoy taking pictures and
Yeah.
to having that, for a lifetime. So it was definitely through my love of photography that that came into play. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. I say this because I'm starting to really want to enjoy and looking at photography. The podcast has really started to make me want to look into video and video editing and really even vlogging. So I really want to see, those recommendations are always interesting,
Mm-hmm.
because obviously, I can't get those super high quality cameras yet. But yeah, it's interesting, and I have a feeling that maybe the camera isn't the most important part, right?
I think how I would look at it if I was to do it again is no, the most important thing is to create your vision, to have a voice, and to understand what you enjoy or will enjoy taking pictures of. I think then it's important to, figure out what works for you as far as a camera and lenses. There's so many cameras on the market now.
Yeah.
I use Canon, so I'm also a Canon ambassador. So I have used Canon for a lifetime, and now I'm fortunate enough to, really have the privileges of working with them closer as an ambassador and using a vast array of lenses and cameras to hand. And one thing that's really impressed me with Canon now is them bringing out the mirrorless cameras, but also just having cameras which are available for different you know sort of different levels of people, and the fact that when you're starting out or as an enthusiast, you can't be expected to get the top camera, and now you don't need to. There's so much you can do with a camera which is not of a pro standard, and it's really up to your eye and your creativity, and for you to make that picture work. There's still enough technology in those cameras, which I use as well. I use all different levels of cameras with Canon, and I absolutely don't think I always need to use the top camera. It sometimes may offer you too much too soon, and you may not need all
Oh
that.
wow.
So you can still get what you need to with a more basic setup, for sure.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, even the new iPhone has some incredible, there's some incredible pictures
Yep.
now with these
Mhm.
with these things. Yeah, and so how did you transition within the surfing sphere? So you wanted to travel around, um, and you use that through surfing, and then you saw photography as a great way to sort of mix that. But what was that initial bump into saying, "Oh, photography is the way to go"?
I think it came naturally in the fact that people were offering me money for it. So
Okay.
for me, photography was something where it was what I loved to do. I got to a certain standard where people wanted to pay me for the images, and it was for me an opportunity to not really have to work, because I didn't really have much ambition to have to get a job and to, you know, be in a more routine lifestyle. So photography gave me the freedom I needed to pursue a passion and feeling quite free, really, and following my dreams of what I wanted to do and make a change in the world, not, you know, work my whole life to then look forward to weekends to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, what do you think of the whole remote work, digital nomad lifestyle? At the end of the day, do you think it's a sustainable way of living?
Yeah, it is. I think it is a sustainable way. I think any way is sustainable in the individual of how
Okay.
you want to live life. I think from my experience, I am a free spirit and have been quite a nomad for many years, but I've always made sure I felt grounded with my relationships, with my friends, with my family, with understanding the culture I was brought up into. I lived in California for 10 years, but I've gravitated back to England for some time now as well,
Mhm.
because I think the way you grow up and the values you hold, um, you know, they don't go anywhere, so they're always there. And if that's a way you can express that through photography as well, um, I think that's important. So I would say a nomadic lifestyle is great. I think we have a short time on earth to live how we want to live it, and no one should tell us otherwise. We should get out there and do exactly what we want to do. And I think it's also important to understand that being grounded and keeping relationships with whoever that may be is also a fundamental part of how we are as humans and human nature, and what makes us also happy. So that's my experience anyway.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard. It's hard to have that relationships and keeping it together. And it's probably the only time now where you can really FaceTime your family or your friends, and it's the only time where you can really use digital technology to your favor. So yeah,
Mm.
it's now's the time, I'd have to say. But yeah, I want to go deeper because I'm so curious about surfing and really the ocean lifestyle and the surfer state of mind. So, um, can I ask, how could you describe the sensation of of the ocean, the sensation of sort of uh, the water, you know, the wave, like being in the wave, for example?
I think, yeah, the best way to describe being out there in the ocean is, I guess, feeling alive. So, you know, anywhere in the world you swim out in the waves and you're shooting surfers, it's kind of, it makes you feel very free. It also connects you, you know, and gives you energy because you are moving with the energy of the ocean. And, you know, everywhere can be a bit different. So, you know, swimming in England can be cold and you've got, you know, 5 mil wetsuits on and you're in a hood. And for me, I like to be maybe not in a wetsuit because I like to feel the saltiness of the water, and it's so good for the skin and the mind and the soul. And sometimes when I'm in a wetsuit, I feel like I can't really fully connect, but at the same time, it's so cold, I would absolutely need it. Um, I think it's also interesting, you know, swimming or being out in the waves in different environments. So, you know, you get to interact with the wildlife in the ocean. So, for instance, in England, there's a lot of seals. So, when
Oh,
I'm out swimming, the seals can come up next to me and they sometimes bite on my fins. And, you know, you have moments where you feel very privileged. You know, if you're in Hawaii, or actually, no, I did a trip to the Caribbean and I was swimming out and there were turtles. So when I was surfing, the water was so clear that I could see the turtles underneath me. So, you know, I think it's really just being, again, connected to more of a wild side, and yeah, appreciating that we still have that, really. And it's a very free sport to do. So,
yeah.
you know, anyone can go out there in the waves and you don't have to pay for it or, you know, wait for a specific time. So I think we need to protect our oceans to carry on that and to make sure that we have that for future generations.
Yeah, yeah. That's bliss right there, seeing the turtles and all of that. I can't imagine. What would you say is your favorite beach around the world?
Um, My favorite beach. So that's quite a hard one, actually. Um,
What do you think of the Spanish beaches of Taralf and San Sebastian in the north? There's a lot of surfing.
yeah, I've spent a lot of time at Mendaka, which, oh, there's a bit of a beach there, isn't there? Um, yeah, I really like the French Spain beaches. I love the Basque Country. I like the grittiness. I like the fact there's kind of city and there's the
Oh
beach.
yeah,
I've always found
that's
that
great.
quite interesting in Spain. Um, I I love sort of the beaches in Fiji because they're very remote and
Wow.
pristine. And it does feel like that sort of desert island. And I kind of like the beaches in Hawaii because they're quite wild with the palm trees and um, yeah, just I don't know, just the beaches come and go because of the swells and very big surf, so it's quite kind of ever changing. So I find that quite interesting.
Yeah, cool, 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 cool. Have you ever surfed in like a very Nordic place like Iceland or in Scandinavia?
Yeah, I actually really get drawn to places like that, and I've been in Iceland, and the waves have been really good there. I think I'd probably class England as pretty Nordic actually with the ocean. I
Yeah,
mean,
it is
God,
pretty
it can get
Nordic.
really cold. Um, I've surfed up in Alaska, which I've really, really
Oh,
enjoyed. I did a surf trip for 3 months, driving from San Diego and driving all the way up to Alaska through British Columbia, Canada, and I camped on Kodiak Island in Alaska and surfed on the beaches there, and Tofino Island in Canada. So I think they're really nice. And Nordic surfing, Arctic surfing is definitely different to your South Pacific Oceans, but it also offers an amazing opportunity to get in the water and play around.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Would you say surf is the healthiest sport out there for anyone that wants to try it out?
I think it is. I mean, it's really good exercise. It keeps you fit, keeps you agile. It's good power exercise for paddling, breath exercising, and I think if anything, it's just one of the few sports that actually you connect with nature, and never one wave is ever going to be the same. So you really do have to have experiencing in reading the environment that you are experiencing, because not one wave's ever going to be the same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what about within the surfing, like interactions with other people? So, how was it being a woman in the surf world, for example?
I think being a female it's had its challenges. You know, when I first started my career, there was probably only a handful of women that went out into the waves and took pictures, and was part of the boys club, really. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the people that surf are generally guys, or they were back then. There's very few women that would necessarily go out in some of the really challenging waves. But unlike now, there's so many more women. There's girls getting out there at a younger age. I was looking at a surf break the other day, and one every five people that were coming to jump in were females of all ages. And I think it's great. There's clearly more scope for having it. And I think for me, the only thing I would say is it it was quite unbalanced, and it's still unbalanced. But I think it's nice to have that balance of females and males, because it balances it out, really. So to have a few girls in the lineup definitely doesn't hurt, especially when the guys might have a little bit more ego going with their waves and who gets what. It's I
Right.
think it's nice to mix it up a bit, and to all have a fair chance, at getting waves. And so many girls surf really, really well. And some of the big wave surf, the big wave surfing women are, taking on some waves um, more so than the men would. So it's really interesting to see that. I think some of the challenges that I have had, perhaps, yeah, maybe a little bit of unfair treatment in assuming that maybe I didn't have the strength or talent to be able to get the same photos as what they were. But I think with anything, you need to also prove yourself and stay long enough in something, even if it is challenging, which isn't necessarily fair. But once you prove that you're not going anywhere, and once you've shown that you can do a good job and that you're, working just as much as they are and doing a great job, then, you will become accepted. So it might take a little bit longer as a female sometimes, but that's only really because it's just not as accepted as maybe other things might be, but it doesn't mean it can't be.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. And we've covered so much, Lucia. Thank you so much. It's been really incredible. I wanted to ask a few like concluding questions just to, feel who like, I just really want to know a few more things. And just because of your experience, it's such an incredible experience. It's really a lifestyle that I admire. So one of my concluding questions is if there's one place that you would recommend anyone to go, where would it be?
Surfing or wildlife? Otherwise, I think I'll have to pick two.
Okay, surfing, we can separate it. Well,
Yeah.
best place to surf and best place for wildlife.
Surfing, I would say, I'm gonna say Morocco. I really enjoyed
Really?
surfing in Morocco. Yeah.
So close, so close. I was about to go to Tangier, a month ago or
Oh,
so,
there
but
you go.
yeah. Wow, but it
Um,
must be incredible.
yeah, Morocco definitely. I love right hand points and I like different cultures, or more unique cultures. So Morocco for surfing, and then I think for wildlife, I'd have to say Antarctica because it's just so different and so unique. And I love penguins and I love the terrain down there. So Antarctica for my wildlife and travel.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. And one last concluding question is, what is that last nugget of wisdom? What is your last final tip for any of these listeners?
I would say have dreams, go out and make sure you accomplish them. Don't let anyone say otherwise or stop you. There's definitely going to be some challenges, but you have to keep moving forward and take those challenges and keep getting or making opportunity out of that. Don't give up.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you, Lucia. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.